this is Julie with another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy Podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Really looking forward to this discussion. And I welcome for the first time, your first time guest, Cole
Yeah.
Boysen. Yeah. So welcome. Welcome to the fun. Cole Boysen is the Director of Sales at Senior Services of America.
Yes.
All
Got that right.
right. We Cole was a guest on the Grow to Quarter Two webinar, which we had tremendous feedback. And I was like, oh, those that didn't register missed a really powerful information, powerful feedback, or input, I should say. So I thought, oh, let's get him on the podcast so more people can learn from you. So Cole, tell us a little bit about you and your Senior Services of America.
Yeah. My name's Cole Boysen. I'm Director of Sales for Senior Services of America here, tucked up in the Pacific Northwest. And Senior Service America been around for 26 years. So it was started by Lee Fields and Randy Tredovic, who are still our owners to this day, so CEO and CFO. And at one point, it was truly Senior Service America across the whole United States. And then starting in 2019, whether it was foresight or luck, they decided, hey, we should probably make this more regional just because of the ever-changing space of the industry, right? And so they started divesting and strictly went to management. And by probably the end of 2023, we're solely here in the Northwest. So Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. And our goal is just to be the premier management company for kind of that mid-level market, senior living space. We love what we do. We specialize in memory care, actually. So about 60% of our
Yep.
portfolio is memory care. And we love it. So that's kind of Senior Service America. We were growing, scaling back up to around 30 communities is our goal right now, because we were at that at one point, but now that
Yeah.
we're just expanding in the Northwest, that's what we got our eyes on right now.
Got it. Cole, unlike many in your position, senior sales, sales director, sales leader of a company, who, we've kind of 20, 25 years and 30 years, in the business. You're you've you're a recent, relatively speaking,
I
uh
am. Yeah.
member.
Yeah.
Now I am annoying. You are a member of the greatest, the greatest club. But you stepped into senior living right around COVID, right?
Yeah, just after COVID. So before that, kind of self-employed, had a couple businesses. And then I guess I'm third generation senior living, I guess is what you could say, because my grandfather was one of the founding memories of what is now a huge CCRC in Lacey, Washington, called Panorama City. And it's just unbelievable. It's like 1,400 acres and it's amazing. Nothing like it in my opinion. And so I grew up there running around. And then once I made a decision to join a team instead of being self-employed, because I got tired, I guess, being the smartest person in the room, which found out I wasn't too smart, but it's okay. We pivoted and wanted to go into senior living. I knew nothing about the industry, absolutely nothing. I just knew it was important and there was a big potential in the space. And I've fallen in love with it. I started at the community level working for Senior Services America at a community in Tacoma, Washington, and then just kind of chipped away at every opportunity that's been presented to me. So
I love
here we
it.
are now.
I love it because you're bringing a fresh perspective. You're bringing, well,
Yeah.
let's just dive in because you're bringing what's worked for you
Hmm.
in regard to building businesses, running business, and you're running your business. Every community sales director is running a business. The EDs
Definitely.
are running a business. This is the
Yeah.
business. So bringing the same the processes and the concepts, and I'm it's how I run Grow Your Occupancy. The same process. So the webinar topic that was so popular was implementing processes that
Yep.
drive sales. So stop winging it, right? Stop being
Yeah.
reactive. So I want to ask you, why is this important? Implementing process.
Yeah, I'm a big systems person. It's kind of my strength. And it's just how I function. And a process is extremely important because it gives structure. Structure. I talk about structures not only for our leads, right? I'm a huge believer that our sales director's responsibility is to provide structure for their lead as they're navigating this
Mm,
tornado, right? That they're
yes.
entering with their family.
Yes.
And that structure has to be both ways. So our mindset is our process provides structure to our sales directors and ourselves because we have to have a trackable process that allows us to be more nimble, but also accountable. So the process we have is at any point in time, wherever you are, our sales director is with their lead, they can pivot within our process. They know where to go. They're never caught on their heels. We're always on our toes. And then on our side too, with the management and the leadership side, is we look at it as we always have to be able to coach to that too, right? That mutual accountability there is super important. So that's what our process is about. And it's not just relying on looking at the very top of the numbers. We want to dig in. There's a
Yeah.
story behind every
Right.
single number, right? Across that spreadsheet. So
Yeah, the data tells a story. So how does this work?
yeah. It works and maybe I'll give some examples because I
Okay.
actually just got done looking at our last 90-day window and we imagine kind of an hour, a magnifying glass that goes across 3 months at a time. And each one of those months is going to tell a story and then you kind of combine them, right?
Okay.
So, so how does this work? And we look at it ourselves too. So when I look at my last 3 months or our last 3 months in sales, we run our numbers through a system, and we'll talk about this more. I gave us a B plus grade for the last 90 days. Okay, so we want to be honest with ourselves, right? And we want to be able to pivot if something is starting to slide. Um, but how does this work? So, one of our communities who is extremely strong, they are, give you an example, they've been full, they have 8 people on a wait list. It's like a dream, right? And it's memory care. And their biggest strength is completed tour to move in. So if someone is going to come in there, she is closing them. Now, where is our deficiency? Is where we've noticed in the last 90 days, the lead quality has fluctuated substantially, right?
Okay.
So that means us at the management side, we need to look at that and what's our targeting look like? Geofencing and ads and SEO, all these different things that we need to look at. But then how does the sales director influence the quality of lead? They influence the quality of leads through their business development or outreach. So are they adding 10 to 20% of the leads through outreach, which is a higher quality lead, right? So that gives you an example. Another example is so Harbor Point, which is a lovely community. I love that place up in Mukilteo, Washington. They have a great quality lead to scheduled tour, right? And they're in a big market. They get 60, 70 leads a month. And we got, at the time, one sales director there, and we just hired an assistant to kind of help be more efficient with the day. And the deficiency was closing, not by a lot, but it was enough to where we're seeing, hey, we need to focus here more. How are we going to close more? And then we started digging in. Is it tour experience? Is it the post-tour follow-up? We have all these best practices that lend to the outcomes that we're looking for, but then our process always helps us look and see if we're kind of doing those things along the way or not. So that's how it works. Just some examples, but the most important part is you have to commit, and you can't change all the time, right?
Yeah.
Can't be so
Yeah.
reactionary. So you have to really
Right.
believe in what you're putting out there,
Yeah.
um, and hold people to accountable at the sales director and yourselves as the management or ownership company or as the leader in general.
God, that consistency. Now, certainly the willingness and the ability, both mentally and physically to make the changes needed or the adjustments needed. But yeah, the what I find to be very common is, people get bored. They don't stick with something. Lots of stuff, lots of ideas. Now we're going to do this. Now we're
Mhm.
going to do this. Now we're going to sit. Okay, what are some more ideas? Or now we're going to implement this program. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying just a community sales. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'm pointing, we all, I know, okay, now what
Mhm.
initiatives, what's a strategy? And it's just like switching your exercise program every 2 days. You wouldn't
Mhm.
know really what is making a difference or what
You
is
have to
making
let
the
it play
best
out.
impact. You've got to let
Yep.
it play
Have to let it
out,
play out.
right? Give it
Yep.
90 days minimum. And that's
Hmm.
where, like, part of a process
Yeah.
is the discipline or the
Yeah.
commitment to do it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, perfect example is there's a community we have that last year it was a slog, right? It really was.
Yeah.
And we made some changes and it was clear there were things that weren't happening in the process. And once we got on the other side of that, made some changes, this year has been unreal for them. And it's a true commitment to the process that we have as kind of our recipe for success. And how this ties into is sales, we often kind of put ourselves on an island and we get put on an island, but it has to be unified with the operations of your community. And that's what we've seen there is the sales process is a full community buy-in. Your whole community is responsible for selling. And our process lends to that as well. So you have to really figure a way of not just speaking sales language constantly. You have to figure a way to get, okay, how do we get, the operations team, the actual product itself and sales to, come together and be something that you can sell on a daily basis as the sales director.
Yeah. Can you give an example or tell, a story around because I mean, everyone listening is going to nod their head, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That it continues to be a challenge, continues to
Hmm.
be a challenge.
Yeah.
Everybody drawing in the same direction. Everyone in the same, we're a customer focused. But like at a community level, for example, what if, what works or, I'm in dining, I'm in wellness, I'm in engagement, I'm maintenance or, environmental
Hmm.
services. How do you get my buy-in? Like, how
Yeah.
does process, in other words, you can be, yeah, I'm really great, I'm happy, but yeah, how does process lend itself to a sales customer focused culture?
Yeah. I think that communication is essential at the community level. I expect, and I tell every single person from either the moment we are, take over management of an existing community or when I'm interviewing someone, I tell them immediately, you are expected to lead from your lane, right? Not bleed into everyone else's lanes, but lead from your lane. Communicate what you need because you're only responsible for communicating. Okay. You have to communicate. You're not responsible for how that communication is received or executed upon, but it's your job to always communicate. Because if you sit there on your hands or don't say anything and something starts to fester and become an issue, that's not good. So I always tell people I expect them to be a leader from their lane, and it starts from the beginning of our day. I think it's, stand-ups in the morning are pretty standard in our industry, but what are you bringing to that stand up? Are you communicating with your team? Are you coaching a new employee on how they should interact with you when they see you on a tour? Or have you gone a month and a half and this person, you never even talked to that new employee? So your department heads need to know exactly how they affect your lane and then what you need from their lane.
Mhm.
So communication is essential there and it starts from the beginning of the day. And we have a tool specifically designed to help with that communication in the morning.
Yeah, like you mentioned the word expectation. So yeah, if I'm the head of housekeeping,
Mhm.
I'm not in sales, but to the communication around what the importance or how does maintenance, or in this case housekeeping, fit into this puzzle, if you will, and the certainly the expectations to do the job of housekeeping, but and then and what else, and then to communicate, whatever that is, whatever your process is, right, or
Mhm.
whatever your standards, your expectations, communicate them, and not just once, but like
Yeah.
reinforcing and then recognizing too, I would think, like, oh
Yeah. And
gosh,
our CEO, she's famous for saying this, Elena, she says lateral accountability, right?
yeah,
Like, yeah, that's housekeeping, but they have an equal responsibility and equal importance to you. So make sure you're not putting them in a tough spot and make sure that, that room needs to be turned or whatever needs to happen.
yeah,
Make sure we're communicating to them and making it to where at your each community, your department heads are comfortable communicating and holding each other accountable, right? Because sometimes other departments don't feel that way, but it's up to kind of the culture and the community. And we really support our executive directors there. And our mindset is our each community is that executive director's individual business. And we're there to just support each lane and act as backup and more collaborative versus kind of breathing down necks. So, but yeah, that lateral accountability is what is the key at each community. And we've seen that when we take over a distressed asset and we come in a year later, it's completely different around there. It's all about your approach to communication.
yeah, people feel seen and heard and important and valuable, and that's going
Yeah.
to translate to
Mhm.
your others feeling that same
Yeah.
way, which
And it's not
gives
just
you more
saying it,
confidence.
you
Right.
have
You
to
got to do
actually
it.
do it.
Actually doing
So,
it.
yeah.
So, the sales, process is fairly standard. I mean, there may be some tweaks here and there, but the leads coming in and the process around accountabilities there. We get the lead to tour, get the tour, the planning, all that, get the tour to deposit to move
Yeah.
in and so on. All important, all very, very important. And then the puzzle pieces that fit into each one of those
Mhm.
components. One thing that you track that not everybody does are
Yep.
scheduled tours. So this is an additional metric, scheduled tours
Yes.
to actual, like
Yeah, to
completed.
complete it. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And can you
Yes.
talk a
Yep.
little bit about this? What is it exactly? Why do you track it? And then how do you coach to that? Like what bells does it
Yeah.
ring like for you?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I just ran our kind of 90-day window where I graded ourselves B plus, but the feedback I was given from program I put it in is biggest opportunity is scheduled tour to completed tour still. Because we have a lofty goal of 90% of our tours actually showing up. Because in my opinion, that's an experience based metric, right? If you have a quality discovery or what I refer to as quality of connection, if you have a quality connection on that discovery call and you schedule that tour and you provide the right level of customer service leading up to the tour, they should be showing up. Now, can we control what happens all the time? No, but we can influence it by following our process, right?
Hmm.
So if that's our biggest opportunity for growth, that means we need to revisit our discovery. Are we building value in our lead, seeing the tour as the next realistic step for them to take, right? Are we so tour value creation, are we using one day? We use one day, are we sending a post discovery call one day, just saying thank you and getting that, second highest communication medium, which is video. Are they laying eyes on us? Are we revisiting what those, pain points were them and then confirming that they're coming in for a tour in 3 days? In the pre-tour confirmation call, are we doing a complimentary call 24 hours before their tour because they've had 750 things happen in the last 7 days
Right.
since they made that commitment and they totally forgot that they have a tour scheduled, right? So we can influence that. Are we removing barriers on that pre-tour call? We make sure that they're still committed, and are we creating urgency before the tour? So there's ways of naturally creating urgency. You don't have to sit there and trick people coming in. You want to have a genuine human conversation and give them an experience where they want more, they want to come in for the tour. So that's all stuff that, clearly that's our biggest opportunity. Industry wide, 60 to 70% is around the average of people showing up for tours. And in my opinion, in our opinion, we think, hey, if we're doing these things, best practices before a tour, we should get up around 90, which then
Yeah,
influences the rest of the funnel because more people are coming for their tour.
makes sense.
Yeah.
This ties into what I asked you because you made this comment to me during the conversation. I'm like, oh, I got to ask him
Yeah.
more about this. It's going to be my Cole quote. I'm sticking, I don't know, don't have a board here, but you said on your sales leadership calls that
Mhm.
you do not say this sentence. You do not say, or you said to me, I don't ask about move-ins. So when
Yeah.
you're on your sales leadership calls or communities are
Mhm.
on, you don't say, Julie, how many move-ins you got this month?
Yeah.
Okay. What
Yeah.
do you say then?
Well, first thing, I know how many move-ins we have or don't have, right? I know I can
Yeah.
see how many move-ins we have month to date. I can see how many futures we have. So if I'm coming prepared to that one-on-one and I'm coming in getting ready to talk about something that our sales director already is putting pressure on themselves over, right? They already have anxiety if we're really going to focus on our lack of move-ins. I'm instantly coming prepared looking at what didn't we follow in our process, right? Or do we have barely any discovery notes in there from that discovery call? Okay, well, that's weak discovery. Did we miss the tour confirmation? Did we miss there's things in the process that I can start talking about immediately that are going to help us get to a move in versus just drilling down and telling them, hey, it's the 24th. I need two more move ins by the end of the month. And I
Right.
definitely never talk about net. Net is not a thing for us. So in sales, is it a goal? Right. In our opinion, there's things that shouldn't pass certain levels, right? At the regional level or ownership or management leadership, there's certain conversations that we have but we have to put ourselves in the seat sometimes and say, hey, someone already knows that they're behind, right? They didn't hit their goal for the month. But what I do set goals of is conversion numbers because that's what they can focus on. If they have a drop in leads and you need to net four or something like that, and you had three outs, okay, cool. You're asking them to get seven move-ins. Okay. That means you need statistically 70 qualified leads statistically. Okay. So I'm not going to try to argue with the statistics. I want to put our sales directors in the best possible opportunity. So we immediately pivot. Okay. Where are we in the process? We have one sales director that's using the event as a creative touch and asking for an update on mom during the invite, right? Okay, cool. Can we drum something up? There's always something we can do
Right. Right.
in the process.
Well, when there is an established process, which number one, that's step,
Yeah.
establishment, and then follow it. So it sounds to me like you're focusing on the the action and the skill, the leading measures. And
Yeah.
that's when asking a question of data that you can pull up yourself
Mhm.
is I mean I've been on and you have too thousands probably of calls, but on all different, coming to the table at all different positions. And it is just, you may as well say, I didn't prepare. I didn't prepare for this. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna, get on and have you read me, the stories that come into class without have read, reading your material. And you really do lose credibility, I think, too. And like you said, people put pressure on themselves, and that's why people get
Yeah.
frustrated or anxiety. They have anxiety because we don't want to disappoint ourselves. We
Yeah.
set high goals, right? And then we have someone got to hold accountability. But you're focusing more on certainly the outcome's going to come when
Yeah.
these things are done and they're
Mhm.
examined and then there's ways to improve. Like, okay,
Yes.
well, let's talk about this. It looks like you have. I mean, you don't have 70 new leads, but you have 300 cold leads
Yeah,
or
let's get
how
in there.
many of
Yeah,
those might you get in touch with or warm
yeah,
up, right?
yeah,
So there's
exactly.
that's the strategy, not creating a whole new system or a whole new
Mhm.
thing every month, but like the strategy is you can strategize within the structure.
Yeah,
And it,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
it makes
and
sense.
it's not in the way our process is, we can immediately identify by having a process that you can look to in best practices. Are we looking at a skill issue or an execution issue? The big difference. Like yesterday, I was on a one-on-one, and this lady, very proven in the industry. She's been at this community for 60 days, right? And 60 days, you're in the middle of your pipeline at that point, right? You're in the middle of, she's brand new to the area, moved from out of state to be closer to family, and we landed a gem with her. But she told me, she says, no one's going to be harder on me than myself. My expectations are high. And I said, look, that
Yeah.
I know they are. Trust me, I know. And so through our conversation, we identified that she had a execution issue going on with her tours versus a skill issue, because her conversions across the board are amazing. But then in that one data point, we're seeing a little bit of a drop off. And I said, okay, well, let's unpack that. Tell me about your tour. And we identified three things that we could do better there. So, okay, let's focus on those three things for the next 30 days, and let's see what that does to that metric. So when you have a process to look at and best practices to tie stuff back to, it helps. And you're not just swinging in the dark. You actually have something that you're shooting for.
Cole, what would you say to someone who, um, I mean, you've already shared a lot of advice. So you're sharing what you do, your company, what works and how it works. Uh, what advice or what for you? Maybe the better question is like, what is an absolute? So like maybe this is advice. My absolute to whomever wants to implement, improve, assess, what is like a absolute must?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think what we had to identify and what I would recommend is whatever process we were going to come up with, it had to be practical and objective, right? You can't just say it because it sounds good, right? You have to
Yeah.
tie it back to something, right?
Okay.
So you have your best practices. So that's one. And then two, you have to be able to coach to it, right? Don't ask that person in the seat whether they're new to the industry like I was, a handful of years ago, or whether you have someone who's been in the industry for 15 years and they've been a rock star and all of a sudden they're struggling because things have changed a lot in the
Sure.
15 years, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so make sure you can coach to it so that way you can hold each other accountable, right? And if everyone understands the goal and how to get there, and the how to get there should be your process, right? So whatever
Yeah.
process you have,
Yeah.
make sure it's practical, objective, and that you can hold both sides accountable to it.
The how to get there is the process.
Yeah.
The how to get there is the process. That's going to go underneath the I don't ask about movements.
Yeah.
The Cole quote
Yeah.
of the week. I so appreciate you coming on your
Yeah.
inaugural uh
Yeah.
Dave. Yes, and hope you're a return guest on the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. I really appreciate you so much. Appreciate all of you for listening, subscribing, sharing this business that serves you all, the million people, 1 million and 1 million plus that work in the best business in the world that serve our older adults and their friends and families and our team members. It, to learn and to be inspired by people like Cole, continue elevating what's already great.
Yeah. I
Better.
appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, and best of luck to everybody. Let's go help some seniors.
Absolutely. Have a great summer, Cole.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.